Yo, welcome back to episode number 22 of the Ben Barker Fitness Podcast. First, a note from our sponsor, the Neighborhood Alpha Dad. Y'all make sure you get on my website, order one of these t-shirts. I would greatly appreciate it. And shout out to all of you who have been faithfully listening. Without further ado, this is my first of the Alpha Dad series. And for my first guest, I had to have my guy, Robert Dycus. Robert, what's up?
What's going on, man? I really appreciate you having me. This is super cool.
Dude, Kimmy and I talked about it, and I had like a list of it's like for my first guest, it had to be like my dad, my brother, or Robert Dycus. And I flipped the coin, and it was Robert Dycus.
I'm very flattered.
I'm pumped. So y'all, something you have to understand about me and Robert is we lived in a trailer park in Conway, Arkansas with blue carpet. And I don't remember why we did this, but one winter, to save money, we were both super broke. And we decided we weren't going to turn on the heat all winter. And we did it.
Best decision that we could have ever made.
Best decision. I had a girlfriend at the time. We weren't engaged yet. And my wife now, and she did not like to come to our trailer because it was very cold. You could see our breath in the trailer. And then I also wanted to mention the time, Robert, that we were going to cut down our Christmas tree for my dorm room. And I had my grandfather's axe, which I had not asked my dad to borrow. And I had taken like 20 strikes on the tree. And I didn't know that Robert had been like an accomplished baseball player. And he's like, hey man, can I take a swing at that? And Robert chopped it down with one swing.
Oh man, I remember that. In fact, I saw a picture that that came up on Facebook from years ago from that time. And I told my wife about it. I was like, man, I remember that. I remember saying, hey, why don't you guys take it easy and let me try this out? One shot. That was great.
I wanted to have you on just because you're driven, but you're also a family man and you're a man of faith. And I talk a lot about, like, I have 5 F's that are like my core 5 values. And I think you may not have them in these exact words, but I think they're similar to what are probably your values. My 5 values are fitness, finances, freedom, family, and faith. And I feel like you kind of embody all of those. And then I talk a lot about trying to surround yourself with men that push you to be better. Like, you hang out with dudes that are just like drinking and watching things they shouldn't be watching, you're going to fall into those things as well. But when you hang around with guys that elevate you, you're bound to try to keep up with them, essentially.
Absolutely. And honestly, I could not have said that better. I think I'm sorry, I'm trying to turn my sound off so I'm not getting dings during this.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably the best way to put it. You have to, number one, you have to have values that you believe in.
Yep.
And that essentially you're going to, that's where you're going to park it and you're going to die on that hill.
Yeah.
And those 5 F's, that's really how I just try to implement that into my life in any way possible. Obviously, number one is going to be faith. You have to be a man of faith, and you have to be strong in your faith. Otherwise, everything else that follows after that is going to be weak. And I'm not that kind of person that's going to be like wishy-washy. And so I am going to go all in on my faith, and everything else after that is going to be very much the same. All in on my fitness, all in on my freedom. That's going to be a really big one for me. All in on my finances. I may not look that part yet, but I'm very much doing everything I can to get my finances in order so that way in 5 years or in 2 years or however long, I'm going to have that freedom to do what I want to do. And same thing for fitness, and my family.
Yes. One of my favorite things, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but later we're going to talk about when we'd first gotten married, that you had said you would always pursue your wife. And
absolutely,
always really stuck with me. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Robert, give me a little. First of all, I loved all of that, and that's one of the things I like about Robert the most is when he said he'll die on that hill. Robert is kind. He's caring. He'd give you the shirt off of his back, but he also won't sugarcoat stuff, and that's one of the reasons I've always loved Robert. It's kind of, and he's kind of similar to my wife in that it's like if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask Robert.
Just don't do it. My kind of view on that is that it's a kinder way of going about things, not sugarcoating.
Yes.
There's so much of that in the world, so much of that in everything that we see. You literally cannot get on any sort of social media without stepping on somebody's toes,
Yep.
or you might be in public and you might say something that could hurt somebody's feelings,
Yep.
and that's something that you have to really keep in mind in today's society. And so, in my opinion, I think that as a man, I am better off just getting straight to the point,
Yep.
putting it exactly how it is, being as punctual, if you will, and that can go into all of my relationships.
Yep.
That can go into my finances. Let's say my finances were not in order, or yours, and we're kind of leaning on one another. And I'm like, all right, Ben, I'm needing your advice on this certain thing with my finances, and you try to sugarcoat it. That could essentially hurt me in the long run, versus you just putting it straightforward, saying, look, you have to do this thing in order to get to where you want to be. Otherwise, my goal might be pushed back 5 more years,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
And it's cool. And it's cool that we have that relationship. That's another reason why, like, having those guys in your life, and even just like couples that where y'all see eye to eye. Like, we've gone on vacation the last 2 years in a row, and talking to Robert's wife, Beth, recently, we were both just like honest with each other. Like, we're all trying to watch finances. Like, what are we going to do this year together where we want to see each other, but we're also like trying to be wise with our finances. And I think sometimes people can't be honest with each other. It's always like keeping up with the Joneses. And like you
Yeah,
mentioned that you're watching your finances, but it's talking about finances like openly and like goals with your friends, and not just like, oh, I want to buy this, I want to do that, but I want financial freedom. Like, those are important things to talk about.
absolutely.
But
Interesting that you said that. Keeping up with the Joneses, that very much plays a part into my mindset, and all of those 5 areas that you're talking about. Um, you know, Especially with my faith. Again, I'm going to go back to that. I don't want to be like the Joneses with my faith. I don't want to be like the Joneses with my family. I want to set myself apart from everyone else. And I just kind of relate that back to Jesus.
yes,
He was not one of the Joneses. He was not trying to keep up with the Joneses. He was very much set aside from that. And I kind of keep that in the back of my mind with all of those 5 areas, which I think is crucial.
I agree. And I love that. Robert, we're going to take it back. Give me like the shortest snippet, because I have a way we're going to play off of this for other dads. Like, other dads, listen up here. Give me like the shortest version of like your fitness journey, like where it started with sports and like how you got here now, and like the Cliff Notes 90-second version.
All right, Cliff Notes, 90-second version. I've been competitive my entire life. Literally was born competitive, competing with my younger brothers. Had tons of cousins that were my age and are my age, and we were all just constantly competing. It didn't matter what it was. Whoever could take the trash out the fastest, whoever could throw the furthest, whatever it was, we were all just constantly competing. And as we grew older, we're all playing sports, loved it. There were many aspects of sports, specifically weightlifting and being fit for that particular sport that I really loved. And so once I got into college, we found CrossFit. It was awesome. From there, just went all in and absolutely loved it. But sort of as the years have gone by, just kind of have sort of reevaluated what I want personally, what I want for my fitness. And I've just come to the conclusion that I want to continue to be an athlete. And I want to continue to do things that I do now when I'm 55 and 65 and 75. One of the one of my biggest pet peeves with men today is that if somebody tells them that they're old, then that's it for them.
Yep.
They have that in their mindset. I'm old, and so I can't do these things that I used to do when I was 25 and 35. I will not accept that. I won't accept it. I refuse to accept that answer. When I'm 75, I might be, a little elderly, but I'm not going to be the average Joe
Nope.
elder.
No.
I'm going to be a man of iron.
Yes.
So I just I've always enjoyed all the things that I've done in my past. I've always enjoyed all the fitness journey that has brought me here. But now I just kind of find myself wanting to do a little bit of everything. So
Yeah.
I just train to be an athlete.
That's beautiful. And that was my next question anyways, was training methodology. And you answered that. And guys, fellas, listen, one thing that you noticed about Robert, he never had to get fit again. And so if you're young and you're listening to this, it's easier to stay fit than it is to get fit. And so if you're still playing sports and stuff, just never stop. And that's probably one of the, like, physically, that's probably one of the best things that you and I have going for us, Robert, is that we've never stopped. And
Absolutely.
that's a beautiful thing.
I was actually recently talking to somebody that I came across. He was 55 years old, and I found out that Memphis has an adult baseball league,
Cool.
which I thought was super cool because I rarely see stuff like that. You see a bunch of older guys playing in slow pitch softball, which is cool, can be a lot of fun. But this is an actual baseball league where you've got guys throwing as hard as they can for several innings and guys trying to crush home runs. And so in talking to this gentleman, he out of nowhere just mentioned that he's able to do that because he never stopped. He never stopped. And so he has that ability to keep going and keep doing the things that he still loves, that he's always loved. And I love that because it's rare to come across men like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of pushes me whenever I train myself, because not only do I want to be able to do the things that I'm doing now when I'm at that age, I want to do them really, really well. I want to do them exceptionally
Yes.
well. I don't want to get to 55 and be like, okay, from here it's just straight across. I
Yeah.
want to I want to continue an incline in my fitness and my ability to do things.
And when you're
Um,
55, you got to think you've still got 30, 40 years left to live. And do you want to live it
exactly,
like complaining and being weak? Or do you want to live
exactly,
it being strong? And like when you have grandkids, you're like, look at my grandpa's arms, and you're just this
exactly.
grandpa. That's how I want to live.
I just, again, I take those same aspects and I just sort of apply them to all of those other areas in my life. So same with my faith. I don't want my faith to be right here.
Beautiful.
I want to be challenged with things. I want my faith to grow, and with my finances, with my freedom, with my family. I want to be able to take all those things and implement them into my family. And
Yes.
I want them to see how I am able to live. And I'm not doing this because I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yep.
I'm doing this because I believe that I can.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's that simple.
And then I think it's too, I think it's important for husbands and dads. This is going to sound mean, but like your wife should not be more jacked than you. And like I've seen men whose women wives have had like 4 children and their
Yeah,
wives are more fit than the husband. That's not right, guys. Like having
no,
babies is hard work, right? And,
absolutely,
and if your wife is more physically imposing than you, that is a problem. Like, and
absolutely.
women should be strong, and I have nothing against that, but men, like, you should be lifting weights. And like, and I want my wife, this isn't the ultimate reason, but I also want my wife to be physically attracted to me. And
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
a huge reason. And then I also think, just like you're saying, Robert, when you're exercising and working hard, like Beth sees that, and I think Beth wants to be better for you. And I think your children see you trying for each other, and then that's something that they will implement in their marriages as well. Like they see you that you've been married for what, 8 years now?
Yep.
And you've never quit trying. And
No,
this
not
is
at
the
all.
most important thing I wanted to talk about with you. I'm going to kind of include, we talked a little bit about finances and freedom. This is something Robert and I talk about a lot, and we push each other. And I really feel like Robert has leveled up his game huge in the last couple of years and has really pushed himself financially. And that's why I love talking about it with him, because he pushes me. And out of those 5 areas, finances is where I'm lacking the most. And so I love having friends like Robert and Chase who are pushing me in that regard. In an area where I feel like Robert and I push each other almost equally is family and faith, being like devoted to our wives and our children. When we were young, I think Robert had just gotten married, and he said something about like he would never stop pursuing his wife. And I feel like when men stop pursuing our wives, that's when marriages fail. If you're not pursuing your wife and she starts looking elsewhere, that's your fault as a man. And Robert, I don't know, I don't even know where you got that from. Did
Well,
you hear that somewhere?
I don't even remember. Honestly, probably somebody older and wiser than me told me that, and I took it to heart because it's true. Um, it's never ending work, and it's always worth it. You can always see in your relationship if you're not putting in that necessary work. You're gonna be experiencing a lot of this in your relationship whenever, and that's gonna come naturally. You're gonna have things. You're gonna have outside things impacting your relationship, and that just goes back to your family. Your family has to see you struggle, and they have to see how you respond to that struggle, or they're going to see how you react to that struggle, and that whatever impact that is that's coming into your relationship, your family's going to see that in your relationship. And it's this very complex intertwined thing, um, that cannot be taken to heart lightly. You have got to take it to heart, because if you don't, then your relationship's going to fail. You're going to fail as a husband, as a father, and every single one of the other areas that we've talked about are going to be impacted. Um, so constantly pursuing your wife is absolutely key. Absolutely. For me, you start with your relationship with God, and then you take on that with your marriage.
Yes.
You become one in three.
Yep.
And so if you're not constantly pursuing your spouse, then everything else is going to be impacted, and it's going to be it's going to be like an avalanche. One thing goes wrong, the rest of the things go wrong. You
Yep.
see it all the time.
And this is something I think Robert and I would both agree on. I feel like if as a man, if your relationship isn't going the way you want it to, or she's not showing you enough affection or whatever, look at yourself first. And like
Absolutely.
something that Robert does really well, it's funny. That's always kind of been Robert dresses well. His hair always looks good. And I think the stuff like that's important. Like you don't stop doing that stuff. Like once you're married, I think it becomes more important once you're married.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Robert, I know Robert is about to have to jump on a meeting here with work, and that's one thing I like about Robert and having him on is he's not. He used to be a fitness professional, but he's no longer doing that, and he's still made time for his fitness despite having a very stressful and demanding job. And y'all can do it too. We've touched on faith several times. You know, we could make a whole podcast out of this. What's like your best advice? And I know not everybody listening to this is a Christian, but like as far as like getting in it, is it reading, is it like time and prayer, like what's the most important to you?
Um, it, if I'm just gonna put something out there, I'm gonna say time and prayer.
Yep.
There might be people that have never prayed in their life, and if they just kind of stopped everything and even just meditated, they're going to feel some sort of pride in their heart, and that can be the start of something very, very awesome, something very impactful. And maybe some of these people have prayed before. That just do it again,
Yep.
and just do it again, and just do it again. I have not always been one that wakes up and reads the word and prays every day, but that's something that I very much strive to do. I can tell for me personally, whenever I'm not doing that, it impacts everything else for me.
Yep.
Um, but if I'm just going to say something for the general listener, I'm going to say to stop what you're doing and pray. Don't do anything else. Put your phone to the side. Put everything else to the side and just spend time praying. I think I think people would see a dramatic difference in their life, and only for the better.
I
That
love
doesn't make
that.
it. That doesn't make it. That doesn't mean it's going to be easier.
Yep.
Now, I do want to be clear about that. It's not going to be easier, but it will be better.
Yeah. And y'all, I think if I learned anything from Robert today, it's like, and one, Robert and I are far from perfect. He's heard me and my wife argue. I've heard him and his wife argue, but we're trying. And it's putting in the reps with your fitness, with your finances, and to get financial freedom, and put in the reps with your wife to pursue her, and every single day putting in reps for your faith. Robert, you're the man. Thank you for being my friend and how much you've invested in me. Y'all find a friend like Robert in a group of men who will elevate your game in every aspect. Y'all check out a free trial of my workout program. Let's crush some workouts, demolish our goals, and encourage some people on the way. Thanks, Robert.
Absolutely. Enjoyed this, man.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
You too, buddy. Appreciate you.